Uh, Two other things. One, very disturbing uh, to the North Atlantic imperialists who want to maintain a global hegemony, and to the Zionist state. Um, China was able to broker a deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia to get them to reestablish diplomatic relations. One of the keys in terms of destabilizing Western Asia, also known as the Middle East, has been the capacity of the North Atlantic imperialists to exploit the quote unquote religious differences between the Shia and the Sunni Muslim population. And, in fact, sometimes they were just absolutely flat out honest about it. Uh, the reporter asked a U.S. diplomat, I think it was in 2013, what was the end game in Syria? And of course, United States troops are still stationed in Syria, as they are stationed in Iraq at this very moment, and they are engaging in various military activities in those countries, particularly in Syria. And this reporter asked the diplomat, said, what is the end game? I mean, what are we trying to accomplish? I mean, what is the solution? And he literally said, as long as the Sunnis and the Shia are fighting one another, it's beneficial to us. So to have these two nations, who are probably the two, leading nations in terms of those two factions of the religion of Islam, and why are people within the same religion fighting one another? I mean, it's quite amazing. But um, this was a major blow, because they want the the only way, as Dr. Wilson would say, the only way a minority can maintain power is if they can get other people who are part of the majority to cooperate with them. This is what you just said, brother, almost about those entertainers and whatnot. But this is on a much much larger scale, and of course, the neo-fascist government of the Zionist state just went ballistic, because they thought that they had driven a severe wedge, a permanent wedge, through the Arab or the Islamic world there, as they, with their diplomatic overtures towards Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and even Sudan and Morocco. So, this has to be seen as a major blow to North Atlantic, particularly United States imperialism, and as a positive development for the world who want to live in a just and peaceful world.
Hmm.
So that was a positive development that I saw in that, and it was the Chinese who brokered the deal. And the other thing, is fact, is related to the Chinese, because I'm seeing from a lot of military analysts that these political morons, led by Nero Joe Biden, are doing everything they can to push China into a war with Taiwan, so the United States can get engaged in defending that. It's really not a country; it's actually part of China. To be honest with you, it's supposed to be, the United States is supposed to recognize what's called the One China policy, which includes the island nation of Taiwan.
Hmm.
Taiwan was always, formerly known as Formosa, always part of China. And what happened during the Chinese Revolution, led by Mao Zedong, against the so-called Chinese nationalists, led by Chiang Kai-shek. Uh, Once the Chinese revolutionaries had achieved victory, Chiang Kai-shek's forces moved on to the island of Formosa, and declared it to be an independent country of Taiwan. Now, interestingly, this is what the same thing, the Russian speaking people in Ukraine are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to say, look, we are Russians, and so we want to have our own countries. But no, No, that that's something that the United States and others, can't tolerate. But you know, this is something, of course, as we've said many, 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 many times, with these nuclear weapons now that can result uh, in all of us being reduced to ashes in a matter of seconds. You keep playing with fire. You keep playing with fire. Sooner or later, it's going to ignite.
And I think that was the reason why Nancy Pelosi traveled there, is to initiate those talks about the plans that they had in trying to do exactly what you just said. In many cases, when these diplomats travel to countries, it's often to go into what they call a dead zone, where there's no outside counterintelligence that can intercept the messages that they have in those meetings.
Mm,
Because if they do it over the phone, if they do it through the mail, if they do it over the internet, you know, these other countries have intelligence agencies that can hack into and tap into. It's been proven where, Israel has even been spying on the United States and tapping into, U.S. Phone calls and things of that nature. So, when she took that trip to Taiwan, that is why China was so infuriated over that trip, because they know what that represents. It represents them, being in the process of trying to wage a war.
mm,
And what happened with Saudi Arabia and Iran is another step in the direction of when they do BRICS, who's working to establish a new currency. When they do get this currency established, it's going to be another blow to the US dollar.
hmm Exactly. Exactly. I guess the final thing, Malcolm Garvey and others told us we have to have an international perspective. We can't just be isolated, concerned about whatever is happening here. Although this has to be our primary concern, but I think it's very interesting that the United States and the people who actually blew up the Nord Stream pipeline were forced to concoct another story. It's of who actually did it. Initially, they had said that the Russians blew up their own pipeline. Right now, that the pipeline actually is a co venture between the Russian company Gazprom and the government of Germany. So technically speaking, whoever blew up the pipeline was blowing up German infrastructure, which actually is a war crime against Germany. And Biden said what 3 weeks before the fighting in Ukraine escalated that the United States was going to take out the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines. These pipelines supply cheap natural gas to Germany, which allows German industry to function to the benefit of the German people, the workers. They're able to run their factories and heat their homes with the cheap gas from Russia, and all of that was destroyed when these pipelines were blown up. A investigative journalist by the name of Seymour Hirsch uh, did a story and said that it was in fact the United States government operatives from the Central Intelligence Agency, because the amount of technical expertise that you would need to do that, along with the type of bombs you would need to be able to place, dive 200 feet to the bottom of the Baltic Sea. It had to be carried out by a state. This is not something that ISIS, for example, or some other terrorist organization could do. So the mainstream media in the United States completely ignored the reporting of Hirsch, completely ignored it. It was carried on, the alternative medias like Democracy Now and other sources, totally ignored it. And as the temperature began, as people in Europe became more aware of this, they began to question their leaders. And the German Chancellor Scholz came over to the United States and had a private meeting with Biden. No one knows what was discussed, but most likely he was saying, "Look, man, you got me in a fix. Something has to be done." And then all of a sudden, this concocted story that somebody rented a yacht, hired some divers, and carried out this massive operation. Uh, they concocted a story, and of course, it was picked up by the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, everybody else. Nobody picked Hirsch up, even though Hirsch used to write for the New York Times, and he's a renowned investigative reporter. Uh, so, that is another situation that I expect to blow up in the face of the political morons in Washington D.C. So we'll see how it turns out, but I do expect it to totally backfire. And once again, these people are, this is these are the symptoms of the actions of an empire in collapse.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, they select, they scrape the bottom of the cesspool uh, to uh, to elect leaders, the people who lead them with absolutely people that actually have cognitive issues, they, no ability to think critically, uh, who are more interested in making money for the military industrial congressional complex, and who now, in the case of Nero Joe Biden, is more interested in saving face because things are not going the way he expected than, say, John F. Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev in 1962, who were more interested in saving humanity. And that's what we're dealing with.
That's right. But brothers and sisters, once again, we thank you for tuning in to our weekly show here at African Liberation Media. Share this show with your friends. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time that we upload a new video. And we're going to continue to cover the topics every week that are relevant to the liberation and the empowerment of African people. Until next time, Abibi Fahodie.
Habibi Fahodie.